You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
Hey, I feel all right now. Hey, I feel all right now. Do you feel like I do right now? Do you feel like I do right now? Motivated, sky high, rock steady, oh yeah, I can do it, you can do it, yeah, oh man, he can hang.
Okay, that can mean only one thing, and that one thing is the fact that you're listening to America's Web Radio and David's Pick, and we've got a very special guest on today, and as always, as a matter of fact, we have Rick White, who's the director of the Georgia Military Veterans Hall of Fame here in Atlanta, has been just absolutely fantastic on providing us with guests to be on. So we sort of split the show up and call it David's Pick, but it's also brought to us by the Georgia Military Veterans Hall of Fame. And if you're coming to Atlanta, excuse me, make sure that you plan on going by the Georgia Military Veterans Hall of Fame. And on the line with us today is a board member, as a matter of fact, I believe that's correct, Mr. Roger Barros. And Roger was in the military for 26 years, an illustrious career starting out as an enlisted man. I always liked that because I came in enlisted, I got out enlisted, and so we have our own trials and tribulations of being low-life enlisted personnel compared to the officers, and but we accept them and they accept us. So welcome to America's Web Radio and David's Pick, Roger. Glad to have you on today. And Roger, are you there?
I am here. Having a hard time hearing you, but I'll do the best I can.
Okay, well, is that better?
That is a little bit better, yes, sir.
Okay, well, welcome to America's Web Radio and David's Pick. That, like I said, I appreciate Rick White and all he does for America's Web Radio and lining up guests and so forth. You had quite a career, starting out as an enlisted man and then becoming an officer and also a helicopter pilot, correct?
That is correct. I was an Army aviator for the majority of my active duty time, but I did start out as an enlisted soldier in the National Guard as an artilleryman. And like you mentioned, the time you spend as an enlisted guy, I think it really gives you a great perspective on what the ground troops and all our enlisted guys do before you become an officer. You get to see things from what I call the ground level. But it was a fantastic, but I'll be honest with you, very quick 26 years. Well, but enjoyed every day of it.
You know, we've interviewed, I don't know how many people at this point, but a number of folks, both officers and enlisted. And, it's just amazing that, one, I don't think that anybody that's been in, if they were, no matter what their age is, if they were called back, they'd go back in a heartbeat. And you'd only have to ask them once for their service. We have that situation with General Dix, who was called up because of his expertise to work in the pandemic virus for the government. And he's the logistics coordinator for the pandemic. And he's in charge of getting stuff from here to there or there to here. And, I know that they didn't have to ask him but once to come back, and I'm sure that's the way everybody is. By the way, I always want to start the show out, and we had a brand new show that started yesterday, and it's a veteran's story. And It was a very good show. We had Colonel, I say we, our host had Colonel Blassie on, and it's going to be posted today, and it may already be up on our website, but I recommend everybody listen to that show. A Veteran's Story. It's Wednesday morning at 10 a.m., and the host did a fantastic job, and his guest, Colonel Blassie, was telling the story about her brother that was buried as an unknown soldier in Arlington Cemetery. And through a lot of work and effort, they finally identified him. And if you listen to the show, and I was talking to some folks after the show yesterday that had listened to it, and myself included, almost had to pull for the Kleenex myself. And if you listen to the show, you better have a box of Kleenex fairly close to you. It was the most touching show that I believe I've ever heard and ever done, as a matter of fact. And I want to thank Simca. Pete Simca is the host of the show, and his guest, Patricia Blassie, just did an excellent job. So look it up and listen to it, and you will have the emotions that we all did. So let's get back to Roger and his career. He started out 4 years in the Army National Guard in Massachusetts, and then he deserted the enlisted personnel and became an officer, and started flying. I guess probably the most famous helicopter in the country, or for anybody that's been in the military, is the Huey. And the story of the Huey in Vietnam is just absolutely beyond the pale. And what you guys, you pilots, did, and we always on the show make an extra salute to the dust-off pilots. They went on missions that, talking about missions impossible, I think the name was given to the Huey dust-off pilots that would go any place, anytime, anywhere in Vietnam to save a brother military person. So anyway, I'm through talking. I'm going to turn it over to you, Roger, and let you do some talking. You did how many tours in Nam?
Oh, no, I'm not that old.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
No, I'm the next generation beyond that. I came in on active duty in 1982 after those 4 years in the Guard. And, Army Aviation actually became a branch of the Army, an official branch in 1983 when I was at flight school.
Actually, it started out as a branch of the Army.
Back in the Army Air Corps in 47. It broke off, and the fixed wing went to the Air Force. All the rotary wing went to the Army. That is correct. But within the active duty Army itself, Army Aviation became a branch in 1983. And it was a great time to be in flight school. It was, we're learning how these machines work, because they don't fly like regular airplanes.
No, I don't understand how a helicopter, and actually I don't understand. Now, I was a pilot, but I was a prop pilot, and I understand how that works, but I don't understand jets, and I don't understand helicopters. And the thought of the engine going out on a Huey or anything else, and then doing the rotary thing to come back down and do a soft landing, I really don't want to try that.
Well, we practice that, the auto rotation, and a lot of people say if the engine quits in a helicopter, will those rotor blades slow down? I mean, what happens? Actually, there's a clutch system up there, and the problem is keeping the rotor system from spinning too fast. Because if that happens, then you get what's called blue blades. one blew east, one blew west, and if you got four, then one went south and north. But no, the aircraft will actually descend, and you have decent control. It's like a car with power steering and power brakes. If you lose the engine, you can kind of maneuver and pull over, hopefully. But just like a vehicle, you're going to go down. You just have to find hopefully an open area or perhaps a body of water and ditch it in water. It's not going to be a pretty landing, but it's actually, for the most part, it's very survivable. And but that's just the way those things are designed. They're very complicated. Basically a helicopter has to create its own lift, unlike, a fixed-wing aircraft. So.
Right. Well, I've only been on a Huey a couple of times, and it's always exciting and fun. And your Cobra, that is another incredible helicopter into itself. What did you think of it?
The Cobra was it was a very sexy aircraft to fly. It really looked cool. It was a very formidable gunship. You could put different weapon systems on there. And again, I was not of the Vietnam era. When they came out with the first Cobras, the G models of Vietnam, I talked to some of the older pilots. It was great because the thrust to weight ratio, so to speak, you could have a lot of fuel and a lot of bombs and bullets. But as the decades went by and, my generation came in, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the aircraft, they kept adding things, but they never really made big improvements to the engine. So it got to the point where when I was assigned with the 82nd Airborne in the mid-'80s, we were flying what was called the ECAS and then the fully modernized Cobra. And these things were excessively heavy. You couldn't have full fuel and full ordnance.
Wow.
So depending on the mission, you remember MET-T, if you go a short distance to your target, then you can carry a lot of ordnance. But if you got to go a long distance to reach your objective, then you're not going to have that much ordnance to unleash on the enemy. So, that was the big problem with the Cobra. Now, I flew one of the modernized aircraft, the Kiowa Warrior, which is reconnaissance, but it was also armed with rockets and machine gun. And, of course, we have the Apache. Those are truly platforms for the modern age. No thrust-to-weight issues at all. But as far as my favorite, David, you hit the nail on the head. The Huey, I just say anybody, if you can fly a helicopter, the Huey's the one you want to be in. It's just easy as far as flying helicopters go, and very forgiving. And it was just a workhorse. It did everything. They made gunships out of it. The Mike models in Vietnam, air ambulance, medevac, as you mentioned. So it was. It's a great thing.
I guess.
All that being said, every type of aircraft that I have flown is now in the museum, except for the Kiowa Warrior. But the Kiowa Warrior was just removed from the active duty inventory, I think, 2 or 3 years ago. So, I guess that puts me sort of in the semi-dinosaur category. But if you go to the Fort Rucker Home of Army Aviation Museum, all the generations of rotary wing aircraft are there from way back, even prior to Vietnam. So.
Well, it's good they haven't stuffed you and put you in a museum. No, I'm just teasing. By the way, I guess, and you're more of a helicopter historian than I am, but I guess the helicopters really started getting their place in the military in the Korean War, and then as we got into Vietnam, and it was, I think they were using the Huey for transport and like you said, medevac or dust-offs first, and then they started arming them and realizing what a powerful machine a helicopter could be in a war zone. And would that be a correct analogy?
Exactly. It's a lot of equipment in the Army, helicopters, tanks. They evolve through the experiences of how they're utilized in combat mainly, and basically the feedback that you get from the people using it. You were correct in saying that the helicopters started being used extensively in the Korean War. We all seen episodes of MASH, and I think it was the H-13 or whatever, and they would put litters on it and call it an air ambulance.
Yeah.
But as other aircraft came in, they realized, hey, there's a lot that we can do. And here you are in the modern generation with, the Longbow Apache, which really eliminated the Kiowa Warrior and all the Scout aircraft, because the Apache pretty much can do it all. With all the computer technology built in, it can do the reconnaissance, the target acquisition, and of course the delivery of the ordnance on the targets. I would venture to say, I've heard rumors that ultimately you will remove the weakest component in that aircraft, and that is the human being, and it will be an error-free weapons platform, probably flown by some person in some facility stateside, and the aircraft will go out without a pilot and do what it has to do without having a pilot inside the aircraft. That technology technically is already there. It's sort of, an advance on what we have as drone technology.
Yeah, that's a pretty good-sized drone, and rather expensive drone with the technology that's related to the Apache. My goodness, it's almost one of those things that it had to happen. You couldn't even dream about it. It just evolved, I guess, in many cases. And we need a helicopter that'll do this. We need one that'll do that, and we need one that'll. And that's. I am very much, obviously, a supporter of the United States. We live in the greatest country in the world, and we can do, I don't know of anything that we can't do if we set our minds to it. And I've been quite frankly, I've been upset about the fact that between the coronavirus and this terrorist junk, that we've forgotten about an activity that's just, has brought us back into space. And I've seen very little, if any, about our folks on the International Space Station, and I'm sure it's there, and I can find it on the NASA channel or whatever it is. But the news should be covering that. We have once again stepped forward as the leader in the world, and that's more important than anything else. Certainly more important than a bunch of idiots throwing bricks and rocks and admitting that they're Marxists. And I just we've got our priorities out of sync, in my opinion.
Well, what's going on is disturbing, and like I told you in the pre-show conversation, I just choose, David, honestly, to tune that out. If I may, you got my bio ahead of time.
Right.
I got off of active duty in 2004, and I literally retired on a Friday from Fort Benning, and that following Monday I was in Columbus High School in Columbus, Georgia, as a JROTC cadet. And I was in JROTC myself in high school in 74 to 78 up in Cape Cod. And that and my dad and my mom pretty much changed my life and set me on a good path. But I feel pretty hopeful. I oversee 12 high school JROTC programs now as the director for Muskogee County JROTC. And we got about 2,000 kids.
Wow.
Every year as far as enrollment amongst these 12 high school JROTC programs. And it just fills my heart with joy. There are there is a large contingent of youth that still believe in what this country stands for. They're very patriotic. I mean, no kid is going to join high school JRTC unless they want to. It's an elective.
Sure.
And I remember putting on the uniform back in 1974. You felt awkward. Other kids made fun of you. And 74, we were a year shy of closing up with Vietnam. Not a great time.
No.
Of course, but
you couldn't wear your uniform through an airport. In fact, we were ordered not to wear our uniforms if we were traveling, and I always felt that was a shame, and it was a shame. But one thing that we do, Roger, and I want to expand on this a little bit because of what you do. Right now, if a grandparent, mother, father, whatever, or happens to be a teenager that's graduating from high school or a college student that's graduating, and you haven't decided what you want to do yet, the military is perfect. It gives you so many opportunities to do whatever you want to do, learn whatever you want to learn. If you're in high school, it'll give you college. It's just, the military is fantastic. My son's in the Air Force, and he and his wife have had a great experience traveling all over Europe, also out to Hawaii. They were stationed in Hawaii for a while. And the military, and what you're doing is fantastic, Roger, working with the young folks and showing them what the military is all about. And the older I get and the further away from when I was on active duty and stuff, I realize there is such a plan in the military, and there's a reason for it. And you see more and more of the purpose as you get away from it, and you'll say, well, I never understood why we did that, but now I do. And the military has evolved and developed over the year, and it's good for any and everybody that joins.
I would agree with that. Now, JROTC, it's a high school program. Our mission statement is simply to motivate young people to be better citizens. There is no requirement for these kids to enter the military. Out of the 2,000 kids we have annually, honestly, David, maybe less than 10% will pursue the military either through direct enlistment, academy appointment, or college ROTC. We don't, the Army side of this program, it is a cost-share program with high school districts. We don't care. We just don't want the kid to feel like he doesn't have options out there. But, I'll send kids to West Point, Air Force Academy, Georgia Tech, and great institutions. But I'll also send kids to technical schools to become the HVAC repairman, a welder, whatever. The whole goal is to just simply become a productive member of American society. Our thing is, don't be angry, be busy. Do something with your life. There is tremendous opportunity, like you mentioned, in and out of the military. In the state of Georgia, junior ROTC comes under the umbrella of what we call CTAE, Career Technical and Agricultural Education. Matter of fact, just like that in most states. When you and I were growing up, David, it was called VOC-Tech, Vocational Technical.
Yeah.
And it's all about opportunity. But the kids in JRTC, kids come in not even knowing what they want to do, much less do I want to go in the Army. But I got a kid, I was partial. I wanted some of my kids to become Army aviators. And there's a kid out there right now. He's not a kid. He graduated number 4 or 5 from West Point. Marvin Lewis, I'm plugging his name. And right now he's an Apache pilot. He's in Fort Carson, Colorado, getting ready to go to the sandbox. And this kid is brilliant. I mean, I was his JRTC instructor at Columbus High, but this kid is 10 times smarter than I would ever have hoped to be. And he told me recently, he says, Colonel B, I'm really enjoying this. I think I'm going to pursue going into the astronaut program.
Wow, that's
And
great.
you get goosebumps because I remember Marvin Lewis in his freshman, sophomore year at Columbus High, 8, 9, 10 years ago. He didn't even know what he wanted to do. He was a smart kid. He, 4.0 GPA in high school, was on our JRTC rifle team. And here he is talking about, I think I'm going to pursue the astronaut program through the United States Army. That is what I'm talking about, the hopefulness that you get out of programs. And let me add, JRTC's been around for 103 years. National Defense Act of 1916. And one of the most cost-effective youth development programs, probably the best in the country.
Well, now, let me ask you,
the Boy
Roger.
Scouts have been around a long time, and 4-H, junior achievement, but I think hands down, junior ROTC has really, it has changed lives. Colin Powell, a very good case in point.
Sure.
Everybody thinks, well, the academies have produced probably our best and brightest generals, especially during wartime. But there's a lot to be said for what has come out of junior ROTC. I absolutely love what the program is all about, and I feel honored and privileged to be a part of it. But these are fantastic kids.
With the stories that you've told and the people, the lives that you've touched, do you get your wife to pat you on the back, or do you do it yourself? What you've said is, and the influence that you have on these kids, is just, you have a talent that a lot of folks don't have and never will have, and you pull the best out of these kids, and then they return it to you by becoming things that or positions that you never thought of, and it's great. So our hat's off to you and what you're doing with your junior ROTC programs.
Well, I appreciate that.
And I think this is, this is what makes America great, is that we've got folks like you that appreciate our kids and want to give back to our kids what we've been able to get over the years. And I love your stories, and you threatened me, and I'm going to take you up on that threat, that one of these days you're going to bring some of your students into the station, and we're going to get to talk to them.
David, you're going to be pleasantly surprised when I show up to that radio station in Sandy Springs. Listen, ask Paul Longrear or Rick White, two guys that I absolutely love. They're heroes of mine. They run the Georgia Military Veterans Hall of Fame. If you tell me something and I tell you I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it, especially when it has to do with the kids. It's all about providing them opportunities. I'm a JRTC director. I was in the classroom for 8 years before I did this. And I tout and brag on the kids and all that. But after a while, any one of us that, talks about what we do, you can start sounding like a used car salesman. So what I do is, like at our military ball or our JRTC award ceremony and the whole litany of things that we do in this community, I'll be honest with you, I just shut my pie hole and I tell the cadet brigade commander or any one of the cadet leaders, hey, that TV camera, they want to interview somebody, get over there and tell them how you feel about JRTC. Because, as the director, I'll be the first one to tell you, I am not the face of the Lighthouse Brigade JRTC. That's what we call ourselves. The kids are. The kids are the face of JRTC. I'm just paid to keep, the chaos down and control the whole thing and make sure that they get funded properly. But this is so about the kids. And if I may, what I do is I love exposing them to great organizations. And, obviously your show and all the guests you've had that have been related to the Georgia Military Veterans Hall of Fame. I met Paul Longrear about 4 or 5 years ago at a vet breakfast in a Burger King. He talked about this, he told his story driving back from Arkansas, and I was shocked, that a state like Georgia that has, over 650,000, maybe 700,000 veterans didn't have a Hall of Fame until Paul Longrear established it in 2013. I'm not from Georgia, but I was like, why did it take so long? I mean, this state is filled with veterans, heroes, people that do service and achievement. Well, it's here, and after I met him, I said, hey, Colonel Longrear, is there anything that my JRTC cadets can get involved in with your Hall of Fame? And David, here we are in 2020, and, Paul and I, we do breakfast probably once, twice a month, and he has come up with a JRTC medal for Georgia JRTC cadets of any service. I mean, Navy JRTC, Air Force JRTC, not just the Army kids. And he is, as we speak, at this very moment, by 1 August, we're going to be telling 4 JRTC kids in Georgia that you just earned a Georgia Military Veterans Hall of Fame $3,000 scholarship.
Wow.
And I helped Paul develop the rubric to score the packets. He got, I think, almost 10 packets. We had our little committee. And so I think I'm not speaking in vain. I think Paul Longrear will tell you he will not continue to do the Georgia Military Veterans Hall of Fame induction ceremony in November of every year, or the unveiling ceremony in the spring, without the involvement of junior ROTC cadets. And my kids down in Muskogee County, David, you have to come to one of these ceremonies. You talked about shedding tears earlier. To see, 15 to 17 inductees, some of them have been dead for decades. They fell in Vietnam or in some battlefield, but they were nominated and they were selected. And then veterans that have done acts of service or achievement, my cadets are in awe, because what they're witnessing is, LeBron James is a great basketball player, but he is not a hero. He is a talented individual with a gift from God to handle a basketball. Ralph Puckett, Army Ranger, is a hero. And then the litany of guys that most people don't even know. Vince Malillo, and it goes on and on. Tommy Clack.
Yeah.
Guys that are missing body parts. Those are the ones that the glory of this country, that it rests on their shoulders. It was their rucksacks that were filled with blood, sweat, and tears that makes this country great. God bless our entertainers and our movie stars and our sports figures, but, I'm very passionate, as you can tell right now, that, and this is what we want the kids to see and be exposed to,
Absolutely.
Anybody can go to a baseball game. Everyone should go to a Veterans Hall of Fame induction ceremony.
I was at the one at the Capitol this past, March, I guess it was? Whenever it was. But
yeah, I was there with you.
So, one other thing I would like to ask, and I promised you I wouldn't throw any hardballs at you, and I hope this isn't a hardball, but it's very, very important to me. When your kids get out of the program, how do they feel about our flag?
Well, honestly, now there are kids that, it's an elective. They join JRTC. Sometimes it's a little bit of pressure from mom or dad or both. Oh boy, do we got to wear the uniform? But I will tell you this, if they stay in the program and go the whole 3 or 4 years, as many semesters as they can get, they are extremely patriotic. The Lighthouse Brigade JRTC, that's the 12 high schools I oversee.
Mm-hmm.
Everything we do in JRTC, the curriculum, the extracurricular activities, the outreach with Hall of Fame and American Legion and all the organizations, Fort Benning, David, it rests on 4 core values that I was able to identify, and now we publish it in everything we do. And that is leadership, scholarship, patriotism, and character. If the kids are going to be involved in anything or associate with any organization, and that organization or entity touches upon one or more of those core values, I give the green light. Let's do it. Like the Hall of Fame, for example. I mean, it celebrates the glory of the people that make this country great. Veterans, people that are willing to sacrifice everything to include their own lives to continue our way of life. So to answer your question, if they graduate from JRTC, I cannot think, I have never encountered, I've never heard, observed, first, second, or third party, oh, I hate the American flag, or I hate what the Constitution has to say. Now, kids will have political views based on mainly from their parents and their immediate surroundings. But my goodness, you will see that on active duty in any one of the services. That's your choice, how you vote, what your political values are. But the kids leave here, I feel really good about what they leave with JRTC. We can execute the entire curriculum and get them to graduation in conjunction with their core courses. It's part of a big package, the whole high school package. But I feel good that when they leave, it's very apolitical. What we're doing is we're sending you off into the world and telling you, hey, life is serious business. You're not a child anymore when you go out the doors of that high school. There's tremendous amount of opportunities, but the formula for success really hasn't changed. It's either get as much education or technical vocational experience that you can. You have to work hard, and you're better off if you love this country, because there is no other country that will provide you the opportunities like the United States of America. Absolutely none.
Absolutely.
And the JRTC kids get that.
Okay, let me ask you one other quick question. And like you said, I obviously could easily be your grandfather, and but I still, whether it's your group, your young men, or women, and I assume you do have women involved with or girls involved in your program as well?
David, out of the 2,000 kids in JRTC, year to year for probably the last 4 or 5 years, 63% of our JRTC cadets are African American female.
Wow.
And they are awesome. Our brigade commander this past year, Cadet Kiki Patterson, just got a 3-year scholarship to Columbus State University. They're phenomenal. But yeah, really the thing we're facing is, hey guys, what's up with the boys? Why are the girls dominating? But I have female JRTC instructors, great women that are mentoring these kids, and but yeah, the majority of our kids are female.
That's incredible. But what I started to ask you, and from your service days and so forth, and this, I may be giving myself away as being I don't know what I am, but I still, I get the chill bumps, or my hair stands on end on my arms or whatever when I see a good color guard and the flag going by and the execution of a color guard. No matter what the situation is, it still goes right to my heart. How about you?
Well, that's kind of neat that you mentioned that. Many times, we are right outside the Fort Benning gate. The commanding generals that have come through Fort Benning,
Mm-hmm.
and all the soldiers. We do our JRTC summer camp on Fort Benning, field trips. Kids crawl all over the obstacle courses and whatnot. But we, our color guards, we do, my God, dozens and dozens of color guards, particularly around the November timeframe every year, Veterans Day and whatnot. And honest to God, David, I can't tell you how many active duty officers, NCOs, citizens of Columbus, Georgia say the JRTC cadets, color guards, look better than the active duty. And really, we do more of them. there are color guards on active duty for, various ceremonies, but they're not that frequent. Drill and ceremonies and color guard are part of our curriculum. I mean, we're doing color guards all the time. So it stands to reason that the kids are going to get to them. And, and basic trainees, which are probably involved in some kind of color guard activity, they're not much older than our JRTC cadets. So, color guard, there is a right way to do it, and it's called by the book.
Amen.
Because one of those flags is the U.S. flag, and that's what it's all about. You're presenting the nation through the symbol of the stars and stripes. It's a very serious thing. We take it very seriously. Kids that, don't do it correctly or do the maneuvers, and there's many ways to execute color guards both indoors and outdoors. But particularly my NCO JRTC instructors, they are experts at it. Matter of fact, we're consulted for color guards all the time by, city government, citizens, organizations. We do it for all the military organizations around here, MOA, MOWW, American Legion, VFW. It's something that the kids do very well.
Roger, as you're talking, I keep sitting here thinking about that. The best I can do is say thank you for what you're doing. Your service that you gave to your country was certainly important, and your being a pilot was certainly, and I don't know if you've kept active in that or not, but is certainly important. But what you're doing today, I think, is the most important thing you've ever done in your life for your country. And when I say for your country, you've got a lot of clay in your hands that you mold every year, and that's our foundation for being the best country in the world. And it starts and is what you're doing. And I'm sure there are other folks across the country that have similar positions as you have, and my hat's off to them as well, that you all are holding our future as a country in the world. And I thank you.
Well, I appreciate that, David, and I do agree with you. I do feel that the 17 years I've been doing JRTC is, in a lot of ways, is more important than anything I did on active duty. Because, to me, leadership is about being a servant, about serving. And, I served soldiers, worked with soldiers, great officers on active duty. And, you do different assignments. But, you're kind of focused on yourself and your family, and you're giving by doing your job and doing it the best you can. But the JRTC job, it is exclusively all about the cadets, and you got to have a lot of energy, especially with high school cadets. And if I may add, here in Columbus, Georgia, it's not affiliated with junior RTC in the sense of Title 10, but we have 4 cadet programs at the middle school level, and you will see that throughout the United States, especially in Texas, and they have it in Florida, but we started it in Georgia several years ago in Gwinnett County, and we have 4 here in Muskogee County. And David, I will tell you, if JROTC was not 103 years old, it never came to be, and someone asked me right now, Roger, we need to start cadet programs in school. And it's not about trying to get the kids in the military. It's just try to create great citizens. Do you think we should start it in middle school or high school? Without a doubt, I would say middle school, because of what I know in public education and what these kids are exposed to. There's a lot of bad out there, a lot of evil, a lot of kids that don't have dads. Some don't have any parents. They're being raised in a home or by a third-party relative. So the earlier you catch them, the better.
Well,
And our 4 middle school programs are thriving. They're doing very well.
I'd like to add something to that. As psychiatrists and psychologists and all of the rest of the folks analyze gangs and what they stand for or what they're about, and they come back to the conclusion that a gang member is looking for a family. Generally speaking, they come from broken homes, homes without fathers, whatever and whatever and whatever. And as I've said too many times, probably people get tired of hearing it, the military is the largest fraternity and sorority in the world, and it's the best family you can ever hope to have. And if you're, like I said, in high school or college, graduating, or whatever you're doing, and you haven't found your family yet, I guarantee you'll find the best family you can by going into the military. And it doesn't matter which branch you're in. And the one thing you learn, and you learn it quickly, is taking care of your buddy, covering your buddy's back, and expecting him to cover your back as well. And all branches, and as I said earlier in the show, the military has a rhyme and a reason for everything. And the older I get and think back on my active duty time, you'd question, why are we doing this? This is stupid. But, 50 years later, I realize why they did it and why they're doing it. And in a lot of cases, they're still doing it. But, there's a reason for it. And there's nothing that can hurt you by going into the military. It can only help you. And again, how many, you said, I'm from Texas, and we had junior high schools as opposed to middle schools, but I assume that's what you're addressing as far as what they got there. And I think it's wonderful. And what's your cooperation with parents? Is it pretty good? Roger.
Yeah, I'm still here. It sounds like you faded out. We got some bad weather going on here in Columbus, so
okay.
That may be affecting our signal. But if you had a question there, go ahead and fire it away.
What is in general, what is your relationship and experience with parents as far as support goes?
It's it varies from high school to high school. I was blessed to start out at Columbus High. It's a full magnet college prep high school. In any given year, it's either number 1, 2, or 3 in Georgia. And the parental support was phenomenal. I recruited chaperones for my extracurricular activities, and they became friends. Like Colonel Kyle Fager, his daughter was one of my cadets, and I needed chaperones to help with refreshments for the team and the road trips to different competitions. And then it's you got to put work into it, because let's face it, life in the modern day, both parents are working. This isn't the June and Ward Cleaver days anymore. People have to go out and earn a living. If you want a high standard of living, quality of life, then maybe everybody has to go out and earn a career and bring in some revenue for that, to that end. But those that could did, and it was great. I'll tell you where it came in handy. With regard to disciplining the cadets, and listen, they're children, for crying out loud. They're 13 to 17 years old. They're great kids, but they'll act out like any other child. I was not a big believer in detention or ISS, OSS, in-school suspension, out-of-school suspension. To your point, I got to know particularly the moms, either face-to-face when they came for one of the open houses or competitions, And I'll tell you, nothing will correct a cadet or any child's behavior like a phone call to a caring mom. And some of them would say, Colonel Barros, do you want to spank my child? I go, no, actually I don't. But if you could tell Michael that, that particular behavior is not acceptable in JRTC or anywhere, and he's probably going to want to correct that before he becomes an adult, I'd greatly appreciate it. Bam. Next time I see Michael, it's like a new kid. Colonel B, why'd you go and tell my mom? Well, did it work? Yeah, that's why I told your mom. Detention, or as the kids call it, incarceration. It's like incarceration in the real world. Are they really going to be rehabilitated? Who knows?
One other question. As important as I feel the color guard is, also, do you all work at all with drum and bugle corps in any shape, form, or fashion?
Now, when you say the drum and bugle corps...
a drum and bugle corps.
Yeah, within the high school. Matter of fact, some of the JRTC cadets are in both. They are in JRTC, but they're also with the band. And depending on the school, every school is different. There are, at Columbus High, we had a band with percussion and the brass, so we had, quote-unquote, a drum and bugle corps. So when we did for example, the Veterans Day ceremony at the school, which was completely cadet-run, that would be part of our little march from our JRTC area to the flagpole in front of the school. And the drums would beat, the horns would blow, and, we'd have some John Philip Sousa action going on. And, it was fantastic. So, one of the good things about Columbus, Georgia, there's such a litany of things to support the military. There's a gentleman here who will loan you a World War II Jeep, pristine-looking Jeep for a ceremony. And you've probably seen those military ceremonies where, a change of command, where the ingoing and outgoing commanders do a tour of the troops while riding in a Jeep. We've actually done that.
That's neat.
Between our one of our deputy directors years ago and the outgoing and the incoming. So, and being outside of Fort Benning, there's really a lot of resources. The National Infantry Museum, for crying out loud, that's just a world-class museum, award-winning, all kinds of resources for the kids to get involved with. Science, technology, engineering, math, that's a big thing. It's called STEM. These kids are all entering, well, they're not entering. We are in the robotics age. So pretty much a lot of what you learn in high school in some way, shape, or form should or has to touch science, technology, engineering, or math. And we have it in JROTC. So, but yeah, drum and bugle corps, is just a small piece of junior achievement, financial literacy. Kids need to know what a checkbook is and how to read a bank statement. That's actually part of our curriculum. Real life, usable skills.
That's fantastic. We're about to going to have to wrap it up pretty soon, and I want to put a couple of plugs in for things that we have. We're so blessed to live in Georgia, and the appreciation that Georgians show for our military, and part of it's due to Fort Benning. They have a great museum. If you've never been to the Fort Benning Museum, you need to put it on your tour plans for this summer or any time. And it's a great museum, and you'll learn. I guarantee you'll learn something every time you go. The next thing I wanted to put a plug in for is, like we've been talking about, the Georgia Military Veterans Hall of Fame. It's in the old Sloppy Floyd building right across the street from the Capitol. And along with that, they have a great restaurant, so you can make it a full day. And when you go, and they have a great restaurant there, so go and enjoy and walk around, and either adults that can remember, or if you got grandkids or kids, take them there and explain who these people are and what they are and what they were and what they've done for their country. And I think it's fantastic. Now, my last plug is that I happen to live in Johns Creek, and we have the Johns Creek, or I say we have, Mike Mazzell has done a wonderful job of bringing in the Healing Wall, which is a 50% replica of the Vietnam Veteran Wall in Washington, D.C. This one that's at Johns Creek, and it has a permanent home there now, it was the replica that traveled the country, went all over the country as a half-sized version of the Washington Veterans Memorial. And it's just wonderful, and they call it the Healing Wall because a lot of vets have found closure, and or veteran families. And that's one other thing that I like to tip my hat at on these shows, is that there are veterans and there are veterans, but we often forget the veterans' families, and they make sacrifices that are absolutely incredible and unbelievable, and they support our country as much as the man or woman holding the gun. And I always want to salute the families of veterans, and they do a whale of a job. And it can be it can be the mother and father that's supporting the daughter or son or whatever, or the wife that's supporting the husband for 6 months, a year, 6 years out of their lives. And we certainly do recognize them. And want to remind everybody, tomorrow is Friday, and that's Red Shirt Friday. Wear a red shirt in honor of our military, our veterans, our first responders, and those that support our country. Wear your red shirt tomorrow and let everybody know that you support them. So with that being said, Roger, I want to thank you for coming on today. I hope it hadn't been too painful for you.
It was pure joy.
Good. Well, I appreciate that, and I hope you'll pass it on to our good friend Mr. White and Colonel White. And I'm sure he may have some of your friends call you and say, well, was it as bad as you thought or as good as you thought? And we look forward to doing this every Thursday, and we've got more people lined up for next week. And Roger, thank you for what you're doing. You touch kids at probably the most critical times in their lives, because they're working with a not quite mature brain, but they've got decisions that they have to start making. And you help them make those decisions, and you give them order to their lives and something to look forward to and look up to, and that's so important. And I thank you, your staff, and if we can ever be of service, just call. And I'm looking forward to you bringing up some of your kids and sitting around our round table and talking about what they like and what they don't like about it, and the best part of it, and what they're planning to do with their lives. So thank you.
Thank you very much, and I just want to reciprocate and say thank you for giving us a voice, us being all the veterans and patriots and families that really love the country. I appreciate what you do, and I will definitely talk up America's Web Radio.
Thank you, sir. And we'll be in touch. And as I always ask, will you do it again with us?
Oh, absolutely.
All righty. Thank you, sir. Have a good weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.
Same to you. God bless.
You too.
My name is Kyle Hayes, a motorsports student at Alfred